Welcome, everybody. I'm glad you can join us tonight for the November meeting of the nonprofit Plant-Based Nutrition Organization of Wisconsin. I'm your host, Terry Lynch. The mission of our nonprofit group is to educate, inspire, and support each other on an evidence-backed, whole plant food-based nutritional path for health and improved quality of life. Our group's open to everyone, those plant-based and those just curious about it, and it's meant to be a non-judgmental place for people to come get information, inspiration, and support. If you'd like more information about our group, our upcoming meeting dates, speakers, and resources, or to check out videos of our past meetings, just Google us at pbnow.org. That's pbnow.org. As we do each time, can I see a show of hands, either by raising your hand or using the thumbs up icon in the bottom of your Zoom screen to show how many of you are currently following a plant-based lifestyle. There's some hands and some thumbs. I'd say that's about a third of the group. That's great. As we mentioned at the beginning of each meeting, the evidence of the benefits of plant-based nutrition in improving health and quality of life for people of all ages, as published in non-biased medical research, is quite striking. Whether it's improving health through increased energy, weight loss, preventing, slowing, stopping, or reversing problems like allergies, digestive problems, diabetes, heart disease, and early dementia, or increasing our quality of life by helping us feel better quickly, strengthening our immune system, increasing our endurance, improving athletic performance, speeding recovery from exercise, reducing joint pain, clearing thinking, or reducing the physical, emotional, and financial side effects of the illnesses, drugs, and procedures often recommended to treat the conditions that plant-based nutrition can help us avoid. The research shows that our bodies do a wonderful job, excuse me, of healing themselves if we stop damaging them daily with poor nutrition and start giving them the nutrition they need to heal and to function optimally. And we'll show a short video talking about that. This is about 3 minutes long. It's truly remarkable. Now, let me tell you what's in store for you tonight. Tonight, we'll hear from two speakers and see a short video. First, we'll hear from our PBNow Medical Director, Dr. Joshua Liberman. Next, we'll see a short video. And following the video, our featured speaker, Dr. Elizabeth Klodas, will begin, and she'll follow her talk with Q&A. Our program should end at 7:30. As a reminder, we have meetings every month, usually on the second Thursday of the month at 6 o'clock Central Time. Next month, we'll have a fun meeting with Ann and Joan Esselstyn, Dr. Esselstyn's wife and his daughter, on how to be plant-based on a budget. We'll be posting more information about our upcoming meetings on our website, pbnow.org. If you register on the site, you'll receive email reminders of our events as they approach. And a quick technical note, during the meeting, everyone but the speakers will be muted. We ask you to stay that way to avoid background noise so everyone can hear the speakers. We'll use the chat box for Q&A when we reach Q&A, or you can put up that raise hands icon or raise hands in your box, and we'll call on you and unmute. Our first speaker tonight is a fellowship-trained cardiologist. He's past president and current trustee of the Wisconsin chapter of the American College of Cardiology. He's a member of the American College of Cardiology's National Nutrition and Lifestyle Work Group, whose membership includes nationally known physicians such as Dr. Dean Ornish, Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn, Dr. Neil Bernard, and our featured speaker tonight, Dr. Elizabeth Klodas. We are fortunate to have him here in Milwaukee and as our PBNow Medical Director. And by the way, I've asked him to begin his talk tonight by passing on some good news. A number of you have emailed me asking about his new practice location. And now that he's in a position to make that information public, I've asked him to begin his talk tonight, passing on that news to you. With that, I'm happy to welcome Dr. Joshua Liberman.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Terry. Thanks for the introduction. And yes, I am very happy to be able to announce finally, it's been, a lot in the works for a while, but I am opening up my own private independent practice in Mequon starting in January. It's going to be called Wisconsin Cardiology Associates. We are going to be hopefully planning to take all insurances, haven't gotten all the contracts with all the different insurance companies signed, but on track to get everything signed and move forward. So, certainly Medicare, Medicaid, all that kind of stuff, absolutely. But we're hoping for all the private insurances too. Going to have, hopefully a much smaller, non-corporate family feel, but definitely cardiology for those who know, for those of you who know me, with a focus on lifestyle, focus on nutrition, specifically whole foods, plant-based nutrition, and of course, exercise and activity. So really focusing on how we can get ourselves healthier and prevent, the scourge of heart disease that kills, 1 million people in this country every year. I'll just throw out there also, if anybody has, I can put it in the comments too, but if you're interested in making an appointment, you can just call 414-207-4333. That's 414-207-4333. And you can leave a message, and we have a schedule that we'll be calling people back and starting to put them on the schedule starting in January. We'll have a website. We're still working on the website. Unfortunately, everything takes a long time. But if you, in the meantime, you can always check my personal website, which is www.dr. That's JoshuaLiberman.com, drJoshuaLiberman.com. And I'll be updating that with contact information as well for the cardiology practice. So really excited. It's been a long time in the works, and for those of you who have been patients of mine, thank you for your patience. I know it's been frustrating for you. It's been frustrating for me too. Try to get this up and going. It's just it takes a tremendous amount of time to kind of do these things. So I appreciate you, and thanks, Terry, for giving me an opportunity to talk about it here on this call. So back to the regular programming, right? We, me, well, maybe there are new people on the call who don't me. I am a preventive cardiologist. I focus on plant-based nutrition in my practice and love to see the effects of plant-based nutrition in my patients. When I get on these calls, I usually like to talk about two different things. One is some recent research that's been in the news, just to give you a little tidbit, since we really try to be as evidence-based as possible in this group. And then I also try to give a little bit of a patient anecdote or patient vignette, something, just to show you the benefits on a human level of what can be done. So I guess we'll start with the research. So this past weekend was the annual meeting for the American Heart Association. So the AHA, the American Heart Association, held its annual meeting in Chicago. It's a big affair. Back in the before times, before COVID, I mean, there would be somewhere between 30,000 to 50,000 doctors descending on a city, usually a Chicago or a New Orleans or someplace that has big enough convention center, to see the new research that's going on. So there would be thousands upon thousands of doctors going there and presenting their research, on either on posters or presentations or whatever. One of the big studies that was announced this past weekend was called the SPORT trial. And the SPORT trial was a trial that actually was kind of interesting. It looked at 6 different supplements that are out there, 6 different common supplements that are out there, and compared them with low-dose Crestor, low-dose rosuvastatin, to see and compared to placebo as well, to see what the benefits in terms of different blood test markers, like cholesterol levels, like levels of inflammation, all sorts of different things. Other things they tested, so they tested HDL and total cholesterol and triglycerides, but they also tested CRP, which we know is a marker of inflammation. They also looked for side effects. They looked at effects on liver enzymes, and they looked at effects on blood glucose. They effects on muscle aches or pains and all sorts of kinds of stuff. And what they found is that, and I'm sorry, the supplements, I should read them off. So the supplements were fish oil, cinnamon, garlic, turmeric, plant sterols, and red yeast rice extracts. So those are, certainly those last two, the plant sterols and red yeast rice extract have long been thought of as having cholesterol lowering properties. Garlic, some people, it comes in and out of fashion, but some people tend to think that garlic can lower cholesterol too. There's no real great research historically. And then in terms of fish oil and turmeric and maybe even garlic, there's some thought that these can be anti-inflammatory, right? So they may have some benefits in terms of like CRP levels, which is, a common way that we measure levels of inflammation. And we know that CRP is linked to future risk of cardiac events. So it is a rational thing, a reasonable thing to see if turmeric will lower CRP. Well, so when Crestor was compared to placebo and these other supplements, fish oil, cinnamon, garlic, turmeric, plant sterols, and red yeast rice, turns out that basically none of them were able to lower LDL other than the rosuvastatin. None of them actually significantly impacted the CRP either. And really none of them impacted the triglycerides or the HDL. The plant sterols actually lowered the HDL. Now, if you're on a true, completely plant-based vegan diet, your HDL can drop. So maybe HDL is not as important as we once thought it was. Maybe it's not as strong a need. Maybe there's not as strong of a need to keep your HDL high. But the point is that none of these supplements had any beneficial biologic effect as tested in this trial. So, it really does raise the question. They tried to focus, they did not try to stack the deck against the supplements, like by using really low levels or shady brands or anything like that. They looked through the research to find what the common dosage of red yeast rice extract was, what the common dose of turmeric that people were taking, and they tried to use that dose in the trial. It wasn't the largest trial. It was under 200 patients in the trial randomized to these things, but it was powered enough to see whether there was any change. And unfortunately, we did not see any change. And unfortunately, this is what we see. There's a lot of people out there that think that because you don't require a prescription to use them, that supplements are healthy, supplements are great, supplements do all these wonderful things. And we really have almost no research that supports that. We do, even in fact, have some research that suggests that some supplements can be bad, right? So we know that vitamin E in high doses can be unhealthy. We know that beta carotene in high doses can be healthy. So there is a downside to taking these. It is still a foreign product, not by foreign as in like coming from outside the US, as in foreign to the body, right? It is still a substance that you're taking into your body to have a desired medical or physiologic effect, right? So whether you need a prescription or not, you're still hoping that it's going to have an effect. And so if you're going to do that, you want to make sure that there's some data to support that. And we just simply don't have a lot of data on any supplements. And so I think it just gets back to, if you're eating a very healthy, whole foods, plant-based diet, with a range of colors in it, right? So deep blues and purples and reds and oranges and yellows. If you're eating the rainbow, as they say, and you're focusing on healthy, whole, plant-based foods, you don't need any supplements because you're going to get everything you need in the food itself. I think that's the message that certainly I took from this study that just came out over the weekend. In terms of the patient vignette, I'd actually like to share a story with you for somebody who's actually part of this group. We'll leave them anonymous though, and I got his permission earlier today too. So I appreciate who I'm talking about. So I appreciate that. This was a while back when I was still at Ascension. I saw a patient who was really disappointed because his wife unfortunately had significant kidney problems and was going to end up needing a kidney transplant. And as you may know, there's a shortage of organs out there. People who need transplants can be on lists for a long time. The one potential exception to that rule is if you have a living related donor, right? So if you can receive a kidney from a relative, whether it's a brother or sister or even a parent or a spouse. And so this gentleman was hoping to be able to be a donor for his wife, hoping to donate his kidney to his wife. But unfortunately, his blood pressure was too high to meet the criterion. And what that means is that because the kidneys are so important for regulating blood pressure, the transplant team was afraid that if he already had blood pressure, they were afraid that if they took away one of his kidneys, his blood pressure would go up even higher. And one of, as you know, one of the tenets, one of the foundations of medicine is do no harm, right? We don't want to hurt one person just to help another person. So we don't want to increase somebody's blood pressure and put them at risk for bad things just to help another person. So he was really disappointed, in this news when he came to see me, but we started talking about ways to solve this. And unfortunately, just taking more medication was not a solution, right? So the treatment team said, no, if you're on medication, you can't do it. And so we talked about, of course, you know where this is going. We talked about how a plant-based diet could potentially cure his blood pressure, get him off the medication. And then when he could potentially go back to the transplant team, say, hey, I'm a different guy. I don't have blood pressure anymore. I don't have high blood pressure anymore, and I'm not on any medication. Sure enough, that's exactly what he did. He went out, he moved to a completely whole foods, plant-based, vegan diet. His cholesterol dropped dramatically. His blood pressure dropped. He got off his medication. He went back to the team. They agreed. He was now a potential donor. They've done a bunch of testing. He is evidently a good match. He let me know, and they're moving forward. And he's going to be able to do this wonderful deed for his wife. And it's really simply because of the power of healthy nutrition. And I just, I honestly, I almost can't think of any more powerful story that will show you what's possible when we start taking care of our bodies and when we start eating healthier. So with that, thanks very much, Terry. Thanks very much to the group, and I'll kick it back to you.
Our featured speaker tonight is a board-certified cardiologist, author, founder of the Preventive Cardiology Clinic near Minneapolis, Minnesota, I think in Edina, and founder and chief medical officer of Step One Foods. She has dedicated her career to preventive cardiology. Trained in Mayo Clinic, the University of Toronto, and Johns Hopkins, she has authored numerous scientific articles and book chapters in her field. She serves on several professional committees and was the founding editor-in-chief of the patient education effort of the American College of Cardiology. If that weren't enough, she's also authored a book for patients titled Slay the Giant, The Power of Prevention in Defeating Heart Disease. I'm delighted to welcome our featured speaker tonight, Dr. Elizabeth Klodas. Elizabeth?
Hi, thank you so much for having me. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Really honored to be here. I would love to say I'm entirely plant-based. I'm still an aspiring whole food plant-based eater. Meat does sneak into my diet from time to time. I live with an orthopedic surgeon, so that might explain it. But anyway, I'm happy to be here tonight and tell you a little bit about my story and how I got to a point where what I think my greatest achievement could be would be to put myself out of work. So let me see if I can share my screen. Bear with me. Oh, Terry, you need to enable me. So I can share. Let's see. Terry, can you see that? Someone needs to enable participant screen sharing. Terry, you're muted. I don't know if you're speaking to me or not.
Sorry about that.
Oh.
Yeah, I had set you up as co-host. So I thought that would show up, but it says Dr. Elizabeth Klodas is co-host now. So you should be able to share screen.
Let's see. Let's try again. Oh, there we go. Okay. Yay.
Sorry.
All right. No problem. All right. Let's see. Slideshow from beginning. Okay. So the title of my talk is What They Don't Teach Cardiologists in Medical School. And I think the longer I was in practice, sort of what I realized was something was missing. Something was absolutely missing in terms of what I was doing. And if someone had told me in medical school, and I'll just run through this because Terry did a great job in introducing me and telling you all about me. But if someone had told me in medical school that one day I would start a food company, I would have laughed in their face and told them they were crazy. And yet this is where my professional journey has led me. And as I look back on my career, I actually started out wanting to be an invasive cardiologist. Then I kind of changed course to be a non-invasive cardiologist. Then I'm a, kind of general preventive cardiologist. And now I kind of want to get out of the cardiology business altogether because I want my job to be made redundant. So the truth is, and this is what I learned along the way, is that 80% of what I treat need not exist. That's 80% of all heart attacks, of all strokes, of all peripheral vascular disease, of congestive heart failure. This is not me sort of saying this out of the blue. It's not a wish, it's a fact. There are communities around the globe where heart disease is almost unheard of. And this is the other thing I learned, is that throwing all these pills that we throw at the conditions that we typically treat, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, right, heart failure, et cetera, if we don't address the cause of why that cholesterol is high, why that blood pressure is high, why that heart failure happened, we will never cure it. And that people who live long well do so because they live well, not because we give them a whole bunch of drugs. And that the biggest difference between the people who enjoy healthy longevity and the rest of us is what they eat. So here's the ginormous problem. There's 122 million Americans who are affected by heart disease. It's a tsunami of disease. 80% of this need not exist. It has been our #1 killer and disabler since statistics have been kept about this, maybe with the exception of the world wars. Heart disease killed twice as many people as COVID did in 2021, which is the last year we have the statistics for. I mean, it is incredible. It's incredible, and it just keeps going. So the only conclusion I can make is that whatever we're doing isn't working. And what are we doing? High cholesterol, here's a pill. High blood pressure, here's 2 pills. High blood sugar, here's 2 pills and an injection, right? Without ever addressing the root cause of the disease. The result is what I see in my waiting room, right? And what I see in the charts. People with, sorry, tickle in my throat. People with perfect numbers who look sick and feel awful. Never a cure, just a revolving door of follow-up visits. And I will tell you, this is not why I went to medical school. I went to medical school to cure people. And what I realized along the way was I was curing no one. And ultimately, this, when I ask my patients, what do they want? What is their health goal? No one has a cholesterol number that they cite. No one has a blood pressure value that they want to achieve, or, a scale, maybe a number on a scale. But really, it comes down to this. What people really want to achieve is healthy longevity, right? It's that, that you're healthy until you drop dead. and that straight line of healthy goes on for a really, really long time. But that's not what we're experiencing. We are experiencing the purple line, this sort of, you're healthy for a while when you're young, and then this kind of the steady decline in health over time. And then, leading to, wheelchairs and nursing homes, and, and your relatives saying, sighing letting out a sigh of relief because finally, they were taken off this earth because they were suffering so much at the end. No one wants to die like that. No one wants a health trajectory like that. So how do we square the curve? And I'm sure as members of this group, you are all very familiar with this concept. And I would tell you, this is something I discovered along the way. This is me, trying to figure out, like, what is it that I'm missing in my practice? And it's amazing as I look back on it. I mean, my education was at some of the finest institutions on the planet. I went to the best medical, I grew up in Canada, I grew up in Toronto. I went to the best medical school in Canada. I went to the greatest institutions on the planet, Mayo Clinic, Johns Hopkins, to learn to manage heart disease. And this was not taught to me. I had to come across this on my own. And so you're very familiar with the blue zones, right? These communities across the globe where people experience healthy longevity, right? Where becoming a centenarian is not the exception, it's the rule. Like, everybody turns 100, it's like a good 100. And what is it that, and they have unbelievable health outcomes, right? They have 80% less heart disease, 75% less cancer, 2/3 less dementia. They don't just live long, they live long well. And if you look at Dan Buettner's work, they go through the 9 things that are common among these communities that are scattered across the globe, right? These common threads. Well, 9, who can remember 9? You can take those 9 similarities and really coalesce them to the 4 pillars of healthy longevity. And I discuss this with every single new patient that I see. And that is daily moderate physical activity, right? These people are not Kenyan marathoners. They're not Ironman triathletes. They don't wear Fitbits. They don't go to spin class. They are moving all day long because that's what their life demands. They're fishermen, they're farmers, they live in little villages. We have to walk up and down a couple of hills to see your neighbor, or they live in Okinawa, where the cultural norm is to sit on the floor to do everything, which means they're getting up and down 1 billion times a day. They have super strong core muscles, and they never break a hip because they're on the floor already, right? And that may sound sort of funny, but a broken hip can be a terminal life event. So, having the physical strength and flexibility to avoid this is a really big deal. I was just in London, and I was looking around, and it kind of occurred to me, like, to live in London, you have to be able to climb steps and walk. Like, there's no way getting around that. There aren't lifts all over the place. There's no, there's like, I never saw a scooter. I mean, and that means, guess what? You have to walk and climb steps. It just is something that you have to do, which means your body adapts and you do that, right? Here we have all this ADA stuff, which is wonderful. I'm not saying anything against that, but we have eased our life instead of keeping it hard for which has some benefits. Social interconnectedness, right? These people have a tribe, they belong to a group, they receive support from others. And it's not about he who has the most friends wins, it's about meaningful human connection. The opportunity to give and receive love is a really important thing. And this took a huge hit during COVID. But that the human bonds, we're social animals, we need to have support. We need to give and receive support. Okay, next, inner sense of purpose and joy. These people are happy. They have a reason to get up in the morning. And just like they're not doing extreme things from the standpoint of physical activity, they're not, solving the world's problems or, building houses for humanity. They're doing things that they enjoy, right? So if they like to garden, well, gosh darn it, they have a garden. If they like to learn, they read. If they like to work, they keep working. They do whatever it is that gives them a sense that they have meaning in their lives. And the last is a whole food plant-based diet, right? Which is what this group is all about. So, it's beans and leafy greens, fruits, vegetables, grains in their most whole and unprocessed forms. And as I look at this list, physical activity is important, but probably the biggest difference between them and us is what they eat. And this makes total sense, right? If from a heart disease perspective, if you look at the 9 major drivers of heart disease, from a risk factor standpoint. 2, we can do nothing about. If you have a strong family history of heart disease, you're more likely to develop it. As we get older, the chance that we develop some atherosclerotic buildup increases. But there's a whole bunch of stuff we do have control over, right? Whether we smoke, whether we move, what our blood pressure is, what our cholesterol readings are, what blood sugar levels we have, how much we weigh, what we eat. 5 out of the 7 modifiable risk factors are caused in part or in whole by food, right? Food is incredibly important in modulating and determining whether or not we develop heart disease and how it progresses within our bodies, whether it affects us at all. So, unbelievably important, right? Nutrition, nutrition, nutrition. This is what I should have been learning the entire time that I was in medical school and pre-med and residency. And I look back and I had, between the time I finished high school, and in Canada, you kind of enter a pre-med track. So you do 2 years of college and then you do 4 years of medical school. So 6 years. So put that together, together with my internal medicine and cardiology fellowships and extra training, blah, blah, blah. 14 years of post-high school education. How much time was spent on nutrition? Again, Mayo Clinic, Johns Hopkins, University of Toronto, 14 years. I would, you could ask me how many months, weeks, days, hours. 0 hours on nutrition, nothing, which is astonishing. It's actually educational malpractice. And now the training programs are mandating that there's some nutrition education, but the minimum is 25 hours, which is laughable. It's absolutely laughable. Mm. So it's very disappointing, especially since, the data is unbelievable around nutrition, right? If this is the work of David Jenkins from Toronto, who looked at using a whole food plant-based diet to affect cholesterol. Now, this was a very rigid eating system. It contained soy and almonds, and it was very high in fiber. It was plant sterol, supplemented. So interesting, compared to the sport trial. We can talk about that a little bit. But what he found was that when he compared that very intensive dietary approach as compared to statin therapy, he got pretty dang similar results. And that was not in, 2 months or 4 years. It was in 4 weeks. And actually, if you look at when the nadir occurred in the LDL cholesterol reduction, it was at 2 weeks. You can change your LDL cholesterol in 2 weeks through diet, and not just a little bit, a lot. What about a whole food plant-based diet and high blood pressure? Okay, so here are 2 graphs. I don't know if I have a pointer, probably don't have a pointer, but if you look at the red line, that's the standard American diet, and it's going from a high sodium intake down to a low sodium intake, right? Okay, great, improvement, there's a fall in blood pressure. If you have whole food plant-based diet and you go from a higher sodium intake to a lower sodium intake, you also see a reduction. But look at what happens when you go from a high sodium standard American diet, which is what most people are eating, to a low sodium whole food plant-based diet. Your systolic blood pressure drops about 10 points. That is the same effect we would hope for from a really successful pharmacologic intervention, from a drug. You can get the same effect of, on your blood pressure from changing diet as you would from being put on a drug. We just talked about this with Mayor Adams, right? Whole food plant-based diet and diabetes. This is from Joel Fuhrman's work. And again, showing incredible improvements in glycemic control in a very short period of time. Here's a group of patients, baseline versus 7 months, BMI going from, significantly obese to overweight, hemoglobin A1C almost normalizing, blood pressure falling, which would predict based upon the last slide, triglycerides falling, and look at the number of medications. These people went from 4 medications down to 1 on average. Again, we are eliminating disease. We are reducing medication lists. We are allowing patients to become non-patients. And we're doing this with food, not with drugs. And this is Esselstyn's work. And so you're all very familiar with this, and you're going to be joined by his wife and daughter, which is kind of amazing. That sounds like a very fun meeting. But he's shown reversal of coronary disease. I had not been taught this. I'm a cardiologist. I had not been taught this. I had to find this for myself. Okay, so this group knows it, has seen it. There are practitioners like myself who know this. There's a giant cardiology community who could be taught this. If we know what works, why don't we apply it? Why aren't we doing this? And I think one of the big reasons is because it's hard, and it's perceived as hard, and actually it is hard. If you look at patients trying to move to this type of eating plan, it is resource intensive to teach people about this, to show them the recipes. I look at this, actually I look at this picture, and I don't know if you can see the whole thing. I'm because I see sort of my face on the side here obscuring part of it, but it's actually from a hospital-based little brochure that is touting its nutrition program. And I look at this gentleman, with this very enthusiastic dietitian showing him these things. And I look at this, it's like, I don't think it's going to happen. This requires a real commitment to do this. People don't cook. This is what I see in my practice all the time, right? It used to be that we paid way more attention to our food. We devoted far more time to it, right? We grew it, we preserved it, we cooked it, we rationed it, we ate seasonally, like we thought about it. It took up a lot of our time. There's still just only 24 hours in a day. Now what takes up our time? Our computers, our shuttling kids back and forth to various sports that apparently require you to commit to a hockey career at the tender age of 3. And it's just sort of become ridiculous as to where our time is now being spent. Well, there's still just 24 hours a day. In a day, something had to give, and what's given is cooking and meal preparation, and and all of the time that needs to be devoted to do this right. I think the other thing that is at play, and I see this changing in my children. They're far more and not just my kids because it's me, because they're my kids, but the next generation, well, maybe a couple of generations down, is getting more interested in food. They are sort of, they're more interested in ingredients and in shopping for health, thinking about the health impact of foods. But right now, in the population that I'm treating, is like, by the time people realize that they need to change their nutritional habit, that some of what they've been doing, it's just really highly ingrained. It can be really hard to change. But this is the biggest problem. Taking a pill is just way easier, right? It requires no change at all. Just keep doing what you're doing. Pop the pill, right? And look, your cholesterol's perfect. Oh my gosh, your blood pressure, it looks so great. And this is the really scary statistic. If you look at the data, less than 1% of US adults consume an ideal diet. This is really scary. I mean, it's, no wonder. I mean, I'm going to be gainfully employed forever. And this is actually what makes me really angry, honestly, because we live in a dysfunctional food environment, right? This is, the people in the blue zones, they're not thinking about any of this. They're not looking at carb levels. They're not reading any labels. They're just eating food, right? For us, we walk into a grocery store, like, honestly, we should be able to take anything off of any store shelf, put it in our carts and feel really good about it. And it's like, no, it's a complete minefield, right? I mean, do you all know what the perfect food is according to the food industry? Anyone care to take a guess? You can maybe put it in the chat. Meat? No.
Oh. Hmm.
What's the perfect food?
Potatoes?
Nope.
Mm.
Cheetos.
Oh my God.
The Cheeto is the perfect food according to the food industry. And you know why? Because it's orange and we love bright colors. We're attracted to that packaging and the contents of that package right away. The flavor profile is super, focus group derived, and it's the perfect combination of salt, sugar, fat to hit every dopamine in the receptor. Boom, 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 boom. Every single time we eat it, like, oh, super pleasurable. The crunch, that is not accidental. Again, completely designed to be the most pleasurable eating experience we can have. And that, they're so airy and puffy, and you bite into it and they kind of like disappear right away. There is an industry term for that. It's called vanishing caloric density. It's, our brain kind of getting confused. Like, did we eat something? Did we not eat something? Like, what just happened? Well, evolutionarily, we are programmed to conclude we ate nothing because it just kind of went away. And you know how you get that orange on your fingers and you lick in between? The flavor intensity is varying endlessly. We never get bored. So we're attracted to it. It sets off every pleasure receptor in our brain. We don't think we ate anything and we're never bored. Oh, and by the way, it costs nothing to make and it has an infinite shelf life. Like the perfect food, the perfect food. And this is what we are up against. This is what we're up against. This is what my patients are up against. And so this is a very challenging environment to be in. And, for those of us who have made a commitment to eat more plant-based and are really, committed to this, I mean, I bet you're all spending more time, right, thinking about this and being very careful. And it, again, it shouldn't be this hard. Okay, so, what are the major drivers of high cholesterol? So, kind of no wonder the default now is high cholesterol, here's a pill, right? Because it's very hard to do this. You have to know what you're doing. You have to know what to avoid. And so this is, kind of getting to some of the biochemical basics of what drives cholesterol. So you can see how food is so important on many levels. So first is the cholesterol absorption, reabsorption, the digestive tract. So every single time we eat, and people think it's the cholesterol in the food. Actually, cholesterol in the food is not the most important driver of circulating LDL cholesterol. I'll just focus on LDL here. It's way more complex than that. You can overwhelm the system by flooding it with dietary cholesterol, but actually it's more related to bile absorption, reabsorption, the digestive tract. So every single time we eat, the liver and gallbladder squish a bunch of bile into the digestive system. Bile, super important to break down food, but bile is also very cholesterol rich. It's one of the things we use circulating LDL to make. So we're pulling LDL from the bloodstream to make bile. We also need to always have some bile at the ready because we never know when we're going to eat. So we have to have a bile reserve built in. Okay, so how do we keep our bile reserves full? Well, I just told you, pull LDL from the bloodstream to make bile for the next meal. The other mechanism is to be really efficient, reuse and recycle, reabsorb any bile that didn't get used up in the digestive process, put it back, okay? Well, what if we interfere with this reuse, recycle, put it back part of this whole system? Well, we're going to be left with only one way to make bile for the next meal, and that's to pull more LDL from the bloodstream, and LDL levels are going to fall. That makes sense? Okay, so this is how the original cholesterol-lowering drugs worked. These were called bile acid sequestrants or bile acid binders. They were Questran, Welchol. These literally bound bile in the digestive system, and we eliminated through the stool, and LDL levels dropped. It worked. The problem was these were messy powders. You had to take like 8 pills a day. People got digestive upset. It was actually a really difficult program or unpleasant program to follow. So when statins came along and people like, wait, one little pill, and we'll talk about statins in a second, versus all this rigmarole, they just said like, I'm not doing this, I'm doing that. But the underlying mechanism has never gone away. We're still making bile, dumping bile into the digestive system, reabsorbing bile. How can you leverage this yourself? Well, this is where whole food plant-based diet comes in. So whole food plant-based diet is high in fiber and plant sterols. Fiber works because we can't digest it. So you have a fiber molecule, a bile molecule, tries to digest it, can't do it. And before the bile figures out like, this isn't working, I'm not getting anywhere, it's past the point of no return. So people who eat a high fiber diet waste more bile, which makes their LDL levels drop. Plant sterols work because they're similar to bile, but different. And so when they're in our digestive tract, and plant sterols are the plant version of cholesterol, right? We just talked about them in the context of the sport trial. But anyway, when plant sterols are in the digestive system, they're interesting because they're similar but different. They're similar enough that when they're in the intestine, the body looks at them and says like, oh, hey, you look like one of those bile guys I'm supposed to reabsorb, and I know they're really important. So here you go, here's your absorption site, welcome back. Well, the plant sterol shows up and it's just structurally different enough that it can't get in. And so it occupies an absorption site. And that means bile has one less doorway to get back in. So you waste more bile. So it's based on that mechanism, people who eat a whole food plant-based diet, because it's high in fiber and plant sterols, tend to have significantly lower LDL levels because they're wasting more bile through the digestive process. Okay, so that's mechanism number one. Food plays a role. Mechanism number two, production in the liver. So there's an enzyme in our liver called HMG-CoA reductase, which is very involved in LDL production. Statins actually inhibit this enzyme and and reduce LDL production. This process is influenced by insulin levels. So when insulin levels go up, HMG-CoA reductase activity goes up and LDL production increases. So this is how insulin and insulin levels are related to cholesterol production. Now, there is a genetic floor here. You know, there is some degree of a genetic blueprint beyond which you cannot affect this any further. So it doesn't matter, you know, how much you exercise, doesn't matter how perfect your diet is. At some point, you're going to reach a point where your body says like, okay, yeah, knock yourself out, but I like an LDL of 110. So that's what you got. The good news is under those circumstances, when you've kind of eliminated all the other drivers of high LDL, you will end up needing very little statin to affect cholesterol reduction under those circumstances. And that's a good thing, because statin side effects, which are uncommon, but they are more likely to occur with higher doses of the drug. So you want to eliminate everything else around this process. So you need as little statin as possible to get you to goal. So insulin levels elevated by simple carbohydrate intake, processed carbohydrates, which are digested quickly, absorbed quickly, and cause insulin levels to spike. So actually some of the worst cholesterol profiles I've seen have been in people who, who eat a no cholesterol, no fat diet, and they'll go like, look, 0, 0, 0, 0. This is like perfect, right? Like, no, these are rice cakes and fat-free cookies. You're trying to do the right thing, but you are inadvertently stimulating this, the insulin release, which is driving your HMG-CoA reductase and promoting LDL production. So it's not about a low carb diet, but it's about a smart carb diet, right? If you're eating whole food, plant-based foods, they take a long time to digest and absorb. So you're not seeing blood sugar spikes. Your sugars are kind of low and slow, which means your insulin levels are lower. So you're not tripping up this process. Okay. The last one is LDL receptors. So every cell in our body has LDL receptors on the surface. These are especially, they're especially evident in the liver, again, because we're drawing LDL from the bloodstream to make all sorts of enzymes and hormones and things. And LDL receptors are actually, LDL receptor levels are affected by saturated fat. So if you're eating a high saturated fat diet, you're going to impede LDL receptor function. So they're not going to grab as much LDL from the bloodstream, and your LDL levels will go up. Interestingly, this is estrogen, kind of the opposite. Estrogen enhances LDL receptor activity, which is probably why women, post-menopause, as they're losing estrogen activity, start to see their LDL levels go up, because the benefit of estrogen on LDL receptors has gone away. LDL receptors are also affected significantly by something called PCSK9, and PCSK9 is an enzyme. It's a protein that regulates LDL receptor activity. When PCSK9 levels are high, LDL receptor levels are low. When PCSK9 goes away, LDL receptors bloom and start pulling LDL from the bloodstream. This is the last sort of category of drugs that we use specifically, and these are the new PCSK9 inhibitors: Repatha, Praluent, Levquio. You may see these advertised on TV. These are injectable drugs that work as antibodies against PCSK9. So these are biologics. Or in the case of Levquio, they work more like the COVID vaccine. They're an mRNA inhibitor of PCSK9 production in the first place. So, but whether it's around absorption, of bile in the digestive tract, whether there's production of LDL in the liver, whether it's LDL receptors, food affects every single pathway. Okay, so we just talked about, it being hard. And so we know food should work. And I've seen it, right? And if you've had high cholesterol and you've gone on a whole food plant-based diet, you have probably experienced it yourself. It's like, oh my gosh, like, look what happened to my labs. But again, as I said, for many people, it's hard to get started. And this is where, after all this time, I sort of said, like, okay, well, why don't we just make it easy? Why don't we, what if we could try to get people started on the right path? And for cholesterol lowering, at least try to, affect every single pathway here through food in a way that is as easy to adopt as taking medications, right? So instead of, take, high cholesterol, take this pill, how about high cholesterol, take this food? Like, that's it. And not own your stomach from morning to night, but rather just twice a day, but design it with, with a lot of science behind the formulation. So this is kind of what led me to find Step One Foods. I tried sending people to the grocery store. I tried to, recommend things with hearts on the labels. And honestly, what I realized was that, that's a lie. Those hearts are a lie. They are purchased. They are paid for by companies to get that stamp of approval from the AHA. Like some of the claims are, they're nutrient claims, but they're not actually proven claims. It's just, the FDA allows you to write things about your products based upon, theoretical research, but you don't actually have to prove that your food does this. It's just that, soluble fiber has been shown to blah, blah, blah. And then you get the little heart symbol. Anyway, don't get me started because this is a whole other conversation. But okay, so this was my whole idea, is develop a solution for people with high cholesterol or increased cardiovascular risk who want to improve that, but they don't want to rely solely on medications. Because I would tell you, I've never yet seen a patient sit in my office and say, Dr. Klodas, would you just put me on another drug? No one wants that. Everybody wants to get off of their medications. And, kind of develop a non-pharmaceutical approach that delivers precise doses of cholesterol reducing whole food nutrients without requiring significant lifestyle change. So again, step one, that's why it's called step one foods, not step 1 to 100, it's not comprehensive, but just get people started to see what they could accomplish. And really think about, composing it out of what we already know. Again, I'm not inventing the wheel here. We know what to eat. We just don't, right? Everybody instinctively knows that flax and oats are good for you. They just don't eat them. They'd rather, eat the Pop-Tart because they're running out the door and, and they're used to things being super sweet. Okay. So this is, the line, and I'm not here to sell you products. I just wanted to sort of show you kind of where, where this all led me. So just twice a day, single serve, like literally it's, and you can choose any single one, and the nutrients of interest are interchangeable. And interestingly enough, coming back to the sport trial, there are plant sterols in here, and it's a fortification. And maybe one of the things that is interesting about a food-based approach as opposed to a supplement approach is supplement. There are two things that are regulated and one thing that isn't. Drugs are highly regulated. Food is highly regulated. Supplements are not regulated at all. They can say whatever they want. They can make claims. They can just not verified by FDA. Now these statements have not been have not been authorized or whatever, reviewed by the FDA. So food is very is very highly regulated. So if I say there's a gram of plant sterols in every serving, there is a gram of plant sterols in every serving. Like I would go to jail if there wasn't. So it's a very different playing field. But anyway, like whole real foods, right? And just like what would happen if we did this and had people just eat them twice a day. And this is what's amazing. Like we had when I started this effort, and it was to help my patients, because I was seeing a lot of people who, were on cholesterol lowering drugs, but still hadn't achieved their goal, or they tried them and had some sort of side effect, or they were already on a medication this long. And I said, here's another one. And they go like, no, I'm not doing it. You can't make me take another drug. I'm like, okay, well, you're still at risk. Like maybe I can help here. And when I started this, I would tell you, people were like calling and saying like, you won't believe what happened. My LDL dropped 40 points. I go like, no way. Like, I mean, I didn't even think like it was, I thought maybe we'd have like a little bit of an improvement, but we were getting phone calls that were literally astonishing. And I knew it was biased data, because the only people that would call would be the ones that had like dramatic results. There's, a bunch of other people that weren't calling and didn't have, as dramatic results. I thought, well, we better like put this to the test, as Mike Greger would say. And we did a randomized controlled clinical trial, which is the highest level of scientific scrutiny you can subject anything to. This is the type of evaluation you put a drug through. And we did this with Mayo Clinic and University of Manitoba. So we had 2 sites, multinational, leaders in patient care and nutrition research. And we said, like, okay, let's just see, would this actually prove out in a real world environment, in a randomized kind of fashion. So there were 54 patients in this trial. They served as their own control. It was double blind. So they basically received, they received a box of food. So we checked their cholesterol, then they received a box of food and said, choose whatever you want out of this, eat it twice a day for 30 days, and then come back and we'll recheck your cholesterol, okay? And then we did it again, this time with matched foods from the general marketplace. So let's say, and it was randomized as to whether they start with the general grocery foods, the control foods, or the study foods. So let's say they started with our products, and maybe for extreme example, right, they just ate pancakes the whole time, twice a day they had pancakes. Like, okay, well then when they got their control foods, it would be they'd have like enough to eat 30 days worth of pancakes plus some other things to choose from, just in case they got bored of those pancakes. But it was meant to be similar foods, similar prep, right, calorie matched, and we did not game the system. It wasn't that we had people eat Cheetos as the control, right? Which is some of the kind of garbage data you'll see in some of the nutrition research, right? Like Glucerna. This is okay. Another thing that makes me crazy. So Glucerna, right? It's Abbott Labs. It's this whole line of foods for glycemic support for diabetics, right? And if you look at the label and you read the ingredients, you're like, I can't believe you are feeding this to sick people. But okay, but their entire claim is based around a trial that they did where they had people come in and eat 2 bowls of Glucerna cereal, and they sat there for 2 hours and they measured their blood sugar response over 2 hours. And then they brought the same people back couple of weeks later, and they had them eat the control food, which was 2 bowls of cornflakes. Okay, cornflakes has the same glycemic index as table sugar. So they basically fed them sugar and said, like, oh, look, our cereal is better than feeding people sugar. So therefore, carb steady, this is, so you have to be really careful about the trials that you look at and look at the methodology of exactly what they did. We didn't do this. Like, we have a sprinkle, which is like a raw ground granola. We compared to bare naked granola. We have a fruit bar. We compared it to Nutri-Grain bars, like things that people think are good for them because they have a heart, or they have they have this halo of health around them, and they are legitimately purchasing them not to hurt themselves, but to try and help themselves, something that they think is better for them. So that's what we kind of compared the products to. And what we found is in 30 days, kind of, mimicking what what Jenkins found, was that you can significantly reduce your cholesterol in 30 days. Our average LDL reduction was 9%. Okay, that's less than what Jenkins found, but okay, we just changed 2 things. We didn't ask you to eat tofu and legumes all day. We did 2 things. If you used to eat 2 hamburgers a day, we didn't change that. We actually asked people to change nothing else, and we still got 9% LDL reduction across the board. Well, 9% LDL reduction. If you democratize this across the US, you would finally dethrone heart disease as the #1 killer of Americans. It would be that powerful an effect. But here's the other thing that was really cool, is we actually saw the same types of responses that we were seeing people report, and calling us and saying, like, you won't believe what happened. Sorry, that's my dog. The greatest LDL reduction was 37.6%, which is a drug-like effect in 30 days with food. And again, this kind of going back to the support trial, and I'm not a supplement person. I actually, I don't recommend supplements. So I don't prescribe red yeast rice or plant sterols or things like that. But there's something here, right? So it's the combination, I think, of nutrients, which was our goal, right? It was to make sure you got at least 10 grams of whole food fiber, at least 2 grams of plant sterols, at least 2 grams of omega-3 fatty acids, boatloads of antioxidants from real whole foods with the plant sterile fortification, which goes back to that combination of, eat the rainbow, mix and match what you're eating to kind of, get the nutrients you need to to affect the health outcome that you want. Okay, and then, we talked about 30 days, but okay, what about if you did this for a year? Well, just by making a simple switch. So if you used to eat, a plain bagel in the morning, and now you ate our pancakes, which still have some sodium in there, and if you instead of having a regular size Snickers bar, you change to something like our bar. Just by doing that and changing nothing else, not exercising more, not doing a single thing, you'd reduce your calorie intake by 180 calories per day, which translates to 18-pound weight loss in a year. There's so much sodium floating around in our food supply. You'd reduce your sodium intake by almost 100,000 milligrams, or 1 cup less salt. 1 cup less salt going into your body. And you'd increase your antioxidant intake by the equivalent of 150 pounds of kale, which is a lot of kale. So, this is the power of food, right? When we eat right for one thing, we get benefits on multiple other, on multiple other levels. Food is a complex substance, and it's a comprehensive, it's a complex bioactive, and it's a comprehensive solution to our healthcare, our healthcare issues. And what I would say is we have to change. I don't pretend I'm the solution, that the step 1 foods is a thing, but I hope that what we're doing at step 1 foods is paving the way to a different food environment, because ultimately that's what we need. This shouldn't be so hard. We shouldn't have to go to special stores to find, the foods that we need to eat, or again, think about, the quality and be looking at labels. We should just be doing what Michael Pollan says to do, right? Eat food, not too much, mostly plants, and us just be healthy and live long well, like the Blue Zones people. But we have to change. And my goal ultimately is to get this food covered in part or in whole by insurance. And that is my path. That is the thing that I am determined to accomplish in my lifetime. Not for step 1 foods. We do one issue. We help cardiovascular health in general. We're really focused on cholesterol. But there's so many health conditions that could benefit from a focused nutrition intervention, right? Everything: kidney disease, dialysis patients, inflammatory diseases, rheumatoid arthritis, ulcerative colitis, perinatal care. Everything could use a specific food component that's involved in the care and management of these health conditions or these health phases. But the only way we change the food environment is if we change the stakes. And if a food like step 1 foods can get partially or completely, that would be amazing, covered by health insurance as part of a care treatment plan, our food environment will literally change overnight. Because all of a sudden, General Mills and Kellogg's and Mondelez and Nestle, right? They will look at this and say, wait, we're playing in a $1.7 trillion food space when we could be playing in a $4.1 trillion healthcare space. We like that sandbox better. And that's when we can really impact, the health of this country. Picketing the FDA and the USDA and writing letters and trying to affect, and trying to affect, the dietary guidelines. It's all great. It's all laudable, but ultimately the market has to shift, and we have to show the market that there is, that there's an economic incentive to do that. That's why there's no food studies, right? There's nothing to patent. There's nothing to get a big return on. It's all drugs. Okay, that's it. And I'm stopping. I could go on and on. As you can see, I'm pretty passionate about this. And if you have questions for me, if you want to contact me directly, please do so at that step1foods.com address. I can give you my practice one too if you want, but my practice one has all sorts of spam filters and things get lost all the time. So, but that's it.
Dr. Klodas, thank you so much. What an excellent presentation, and what an excellent job you're doing trying to make a change in the space out there, and help so many people change their lives. And
Well, someone's got to do it.
That's right. Well, that's
why not a 5'4" cardiologist that like barely tips the scale at 105.
Well, that's, as you said, the information is out there. People just aren't aware of it.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, it can be very difficult going whole food plant-based if you don't cook, if you don't have the information. For some people, for me, it was I was in the same situation where I had no idea how to go about it, but I had learned the benefit of it. And I can tell you one thing that I think many of the people here have experienced, and that's once you take those steps and go in that direction and start to feel better.
That's it.
You don't want to go back.
That's it. That's it right there. Is what makes this sustainable is how you feel. You feel better, and you never want to go back to feeling the way you did before. But you have to get started, right? And so, what I hope I've contributed to this entire effort is that something you can test in 30 days. Most people can commit to something simple for 30 days and then see like, what, like this happened, like that's amazing. Oh, and by the way, like my digestive system is working better because now I have more fiber, right? So it's like, whoa, wait, okay, let's keep adding. Let's take what I did here and let me try and do this on my own. Like that's the goal. My goal is not for people to be dependent on Step One Foods. My goal is for people to like get started, see that there's a response, and then take off from there. But
not to get into products and product endorsements too much, but I did order some Step One Foods, and when you initially when you committed to speaking, months ago, and I've got to say I love the bars. I love the chocolate. I think there's a chocolate crunch bar and there's another chocolate bar. So I during the period of time I had them, and I just got another order in yesterday. So once a day, I love to pop one of those, and I look forward to it. But you do have a lot of other things available as well. But yes, I mean it just goes to show that even if you're making small changes to what you're eating, if you're heading in the right direction, it can make a big difference.
Big difference. Big difference.
Now, I'll just ask, anybody have any questions? Look at the
chat. Yeah, there's a chat here. So let's see. I began. Can you see it?
Yes, I can.
Okay. I began a whole food plant-based diet in January. It worked, lowered my LDL numbers 50 points plus. Yay. That's a huge reduction in risk. But I started to lose weight. I do not want to lose weight and look too thin. 100 pounds, 5'5". How can I manage to regain weight but still keep my cholesterol healthy? I think this might be, not necessarily changing the composition of what you're eating, but it may be increasing volume, which can sometimes be challenging, right? Because the thing about a whole food plant-based diet is the items are nutrient dense but calorie poor, right? 100 calories of beef is about this big. 100 calories of broccoli is about this big. So it's sometimes hard to get all those calories in. You can look at things like nuts and seeds, which are concentrated forms of calories, and they're delicious, and the fats that are in them are actually health promoting. Don't overdo it, but there's a source of kind of smaller volumes of food that are calorie dense. And then think about beans, legumes, also it can be higher calorie density while maintaining that really favorable nutrient profile.
Sounds great. We have two other questions here. I first go to Michael Silver. If you want to unmute.
Hi there. Thanks for taking my call. I have been plant progressive my whole adult life. During the pandemic, we actually were completely vegetarian, although not vegan. So my question is, when you say whole food plant-based, are you talking vegan? Because during the pandemic, my cholesterol went from 177 to 183.
The total.
Yeah.
Did the composition change? Did your HDL go up or down, or?
My HDL went up.
So HDL is the good cholesterol. So
Yeah.
that's cholesterol that's not depositing in our arteries. So actually you want that number to be as high as possible. So HDL going up is actually maybe the reason why your total cholesterol went up. And that's actually your risk is reduced, even though your total cholesterol went up. So that could be part of the answer. In terms of vegan, vegetarian, I will take any progress towards, a more whole food plant-based approach. So if you're any increase in beans, leafy greens, whole fruits, vegetables, whole grains, in their most whole and unprocessed forms, I give you thumbs up. I still, the dietary advice, I don't demand that my patients become vegan. Like I said, I am an aspiring vegetarian. I'm trying, like you, I'm a plant progressive. I'm trying to, eat more and more. And there are days, where I have no dairy, no meat. I actually don't eat much meat anymore. Like it's really more kind of a social thing where there's and I have a little bit because I actually don't enjoy it anymore. I do enjoy fish, so I have fish. The thing that is hardest for me to give up, honestly, is cheese. So I'm trying to kind of, wean myself off. What I would say is, again, the people in the blue zones, they're not thinking about this, right? Like we're twisting ourselves into pretzels about, what we should be eating, how much protein, oh, is that too many carbs? And it's in many ways astonishing that we are the only animal on the planet that doesn't know what to eat. And the dietary advice I share with my patients, because I think it's just so sane, is Michael Pollan's, right? Which is it's the subtitle in his book called In Defense of Food. And the subtitle is Eat Food. So this is it's 7 words long, right? Like, this is brilliant. Eat food, meaning eat real food that your great-grandmother would recognize as food, right? She wouldn't recognize a Pop-Tart as food or Mountain Dew as food, right? She wouldn't recognize 80% of what's in the grocery store. So eat food, not too much. Eat food, not too much, mostly plants. That's it. And so, if you have meat from time to time, like, okay, it's not the end of the world. I don't think. And, you know, there are, I think, plant-based physicians, and Esselstyn and Ornish, you know, and Furman, they're kind of militant about this. And they say, no, no, no. I don't know. I think we have canine teeth for a reason. I'm not gonna get all upset if you have a little bit of meat. Just don't overdo it. Eat food, not too much, mostly plants. I think that works really, really well.
Thank you.
David Gutierrez,
Yes.
can you hear me?
Yeah.
There you go. Sure.
Yeah, can you hear me? Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Dr. Klodas. My name is David Gutierrez. I'm a board certified general surgeon and also a heart attack victim when I was 51. I'm currently 53. I went full whole food, plant-based.
Awesome.
I did that. You know, I had seen, I'm sure you heard of Forks Over Knives.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I actually saw that documentary before I had my event and chose to ignore it. But at least I knew where I was going afterwards. Now, fortunately, I think I just had like an acute coronary heart syndrome because I had some enzyme leak, but no EKG changes. My ejection fraction is like still 70%. So I was fortunate, but I still ended up with four stents in my heart. And getting to what I was going to ask you was step one foods, and the study that you were demonstrating was that you were feeding them that twice a day. Is that it, or it's just twice a day in addition to whatever else they wanted to eat? And because I mean.
Yep. So this was meant to, you know, kind of be a substitute for something they were eating already at these times, right? This is assuming, you know, I mean, we only have so much room in our stomachs, right? So this was displacing something, but these are small little things, right? It's a you know, small little chocolate bar, or, you know, a fruit bar. It's a, you know, bowl of oatmeal, instant oatmeal. So it was typically like breakfast and snack is where these foods would fit in. But for this purpose, we asked people to change nothing else. So like I said, if someone ate burgers twice a day habitually, we didn't ask them to change that. We just asked them to change out these two things because we really wanted to, and in the real world, right? So not in a lab, not where every single bite of food was controlled, because that's not realistic either. It's like, okay, does this work in, you know, in a free living population going about their lives? And so that was the whole point of this. We actually, I mean, if we could have set ourselves up to fail anymore, I don't think we could have, and yet we still showed this response, which again just underscores the power of food. But it was meant to be as a, you know, small substitute, but in general, they continued everything else. They were on no supplements and they were on no cholesterol lowering drugs.
Have you done a study where you're basically replacing all your foods for a period of time with step one type foods, or even the step one products themselves, to see how they do?
So that would, you know, if you want to take this to the extreme, you would follow David Jenkins' protocol, right, where it's the plant sterile, you know, the supplemented nutritional plan that is, you know, entirely plant-based, and the, you know, there's soy foods and there's lots of beans, and, you know, and it's vegan, and that's where he got the, you know, their average LDL reduction was statin level in 2 weeks.
Right. Oh, one last thing.
Yeah.
I will be attending the American College of Lifestyle Medicine
Oh, I will be there.
next week. Are you going to be there?
I am actually. We're exhibiting, which is like the very first time we thought we were like, okay, maybe we'll try sharing this with a broader physician community. Thought this might be a friendly audience, but our trial was just published this year, and amazingly enough, when I've tried to take this to my colleagues, what they would say is, no, show me the data. Like, show me that this works. I'm like, really? You need me to prove that eating oats and flax and chia and walnuts and almonds is good for you? Like, but this is, you know, this is the ethos in which we've been immersed, right? Like randomized controlled trial, show me the data. Like if you can't show me the data, I'm not doing it, right? And like we've sort of lost common sense, but like, okay, I did it, it's published. Okay, suck it now.
Yeah.
Start looking at this for your patients.
And
I don't pretend. Sorry, and I don't like, and I want to be clear. This is not meant to be a substitution for statins. You know, there are some people, like I'm not anti-drug. I prescribe medications all the time. You know, some people should be on statins. You should be on a statin. Someone with a cardiovascular event, you know, who has gone through this. You know, the data is pretty astonishingly, you know, favorable to having people on statin medications. But but that's only part of the solution. You know, the way we present it as a community, the way our patients perceive it is that that's the whole answer. My LDL is fine, I'm good. It's like, no, that is just, what we do is complementary medicine. You know, the true healing happens through, you know, regular physical activity, social interconnectedness, inner sense of purpose and joy, whole food, plant-based diet. That is the foundation of healing and prevention. What we do is we can add some things to help people be more successful in achieving healthy longevity. But what we do is not, you know, it is not the be all and end all. I mean, when I mentioned that list, right, I didn't mention one drug, I didn't mention one procedure, right? These people live long well because they live well.
Right.
Sorry, and I interrupted you, David. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I'm going there because it's part of, I'm trying to fulfill my requirements to become board certified in lifestyle medicine.
Awesome.
You know, I'm so passionate about this now, and I've already helped a handful of patients in my practice, the ones who will listen. So many people just don't listen. But you know, part of that was my delivery. You know, I was like an all or nothing kind of guy, and I realized that that's just not possible. It was all or nothing for me because I saw myself, you know, on the precipice of falling off the cliff. But when other people don't have that they don't see that, even though they're driving themselves there, you know, it's hard to get them to change. But I mean, I'm like you. I want to stop conventional treatments as much as I can. I mean, 80% of gallstones are composed of cholesterol. I wonder how many gallbladders I wouldn't have to do if it wasn't for the cholesterol levels in Americans' bloodstreams.
Yep.
Anyways, I'm looking forward to meeting you there. Then I'm gonna.
Come by the booth.
I'm going to, and I may even start stocking Step 1 foods in my practice and give them to patients who I feel really are going to commit to it.
Oh, that'd be awesome. Oh, well, come by the booth. We'll chat.
No, yeah,
Awesome.
no, definitely. You'll see me there.
Okay, awesome.
All right, thank you.
So happy to see a connection here. What was that number 2 on the list? Social interconnectedness.
There we go. Yes.
Yeah, there you go.
And I hear a lot of purpose and joy coming from you. So there you go. You're doing it.
You know,
go ahead.
There was a lady who told me about this Zoom today, who I met at the Centers for Nutrition Studies retreat that I went to in Arizona, which was Dr. T. Colin Campbell's retreat. I went last week. That was an amazing event. And she's the one that told me about this. So look how one domino hits another. I've learned so much tonight on your lecture when it comes to what brings up your LDL cholesterol. Every day I learn, and I'm applying these principles in my own life. And as they improve my life, I also share it with my patients. And those that listen have benefited tremendously. I've gotten one lady off all her statins, all her diabetes medications. I mean, people's A1Cs went down from 10 to like 5.6. I mean, I'm like you. I'm so angry that I spent 12 years, $250,000 on my education, and I never had anybody tell me not once about this.
Yeah, it is educational malpractice. I mean, it is.
It is. Well, I'll see you at the conference.
Sounds great. Look forward to it.
Thank you for the lecture. It was excellent.
Thank you.
And and hitting that point in educational malpractice, the day may come when actually when actually those kind of things can be taken to court. It's not now, but that may come, and that certainly would also move things in the right direction. As most of the people here who regularly come know, we are more whole food, plant-based oriented. But as both the doctors know, and Dr. Lieberman, who's I think still on here, it's a difficult thing to accomplish for some people. I know Dr. Lieberman has mentioned in the past that he had a fellow who said, if I have to eat steak, I'd rather die than not eat steak. And that kind of thing is, I imagine, not uncommon. So taking steps like this, step one, in the right direction, can really help. And as we talked about before, once people begin to feel better, to go to the doctor and get their labs back and find out the dramatic change that has happened. They have their physicians say, "What are you doing? This is, this is not, your numbers are changing, they're changing in a good direction, but how did this happen?" It's not unusual to have that happen when you start to move in the right direction. And so making it any easier, like you're doing, Dr. Klodas, for people to do this is so helpful, so beneficial to people. And it makes me angry to hear from two physicians who are experienced physicians that they had no idea about this and they had to find out about it themselves, and that it did not happen when they were going through medical school.
I'm just thankful I wasn't the 25% of patients who die of sudden death.
Right.
And the other thing is, I when I started my whole food plant-based journey, I said, how am I going to monitor this short of getting another cath? Because that's not without its risk. I didn't want to get a pseudoaneurysm in my groin or something like that. So I was doing my reading and say, hey, yeah, let's do a carotid intimal media thickness test. Well, I found a 15 millimeter long plaque in my left common carotid artery. I'm happy to report that after a year of a whole food plant-based diet, that 15 millimeter plaque at the same vascular lab shrunk to 8 millimeters.
Wow. Holy mackerel.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, I can't be more of an advocate for this.
Yeah, patients becoming non-patients, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Diagnoses melting away, right? Medications list shrinking. I mean, that's what we're supposed to be doing. This is what we're supposed to be doing, healing people.
Healing people, and first doing no harm, then try to help.
Yeah.
All right, well, I'm going to check out.
Thank you for that contribution. And let me jump here because we did go over, but we went over for very good reasons. Our next monthly meeting is going to be Thursday, December 8th at 6 p.m. again. Our featured speakers then are going to be Ann and Joan Esselstyn. We're stepping out. Normally we do have physicians speaking or dietitians. This time we'll have a physician's wife and daughter speaking. If you'd like to receive notice of this or other upcoming PBNow events or not currently on our list, once again, you can register at pbnow.org. Also a reminder, if you'd like to check out our past meetings, you can go to our video library selection on the website. Just follow the directions there and go to most of the meeting will be up there, and then you can, of course, scan through there, especially if it's been a meeting you've seen before and there was a certain area you wanted to go back to, just let's move to that area and you can pick that up. Thanks again to Dr. Josh Lieberman and Dr. Elizabeth Klodas for sharing your valuable time tonight and knowledge with us tonight. Good night, and thanks everybody for coming.
Thank you. I'll try and answer some of these questions still.
Oh, there are some questions still?
Yeah,
I guess.
so I'm happy to stay on and answer these.
For anybody who wants to stay on, everybody else.
Okay.
See you next time.
Okay. So see, will you be adding to your food choices beyond breakfast and snack items? So our goal is not to do full meals. This is really about making it super simple. But in terms of snacks, our products tend to veer sweet right now because it's, fruit and dates and nut based for the bars and some dark chocolate. I'm I'm a saltaholic. I love salt. So I'm actually a very low salt, but crackers. I'm dying for something savory. But here, and it's formulated, but I can tell you, like, it is impossible to find people to help make this food. The other thing I've learned along the way is that the food manufacturing is part of the reason why there's specific equipment, and to get your food through the equipment, it has to be a specific consistency, a specific flow, or whatever. So our bars are made without any binders, without anything, which is like, no, it will not work through our equipment. You have to add this syrup, you have to do that, or the powder things. No, you have to add flow agents because otherwise it will not work through our equipment. We don't know how to make food anymore. that's the other thing. So it's actually, I've been sitting on a cracker recipe, which is amazing. I can make it in my own oven. But to make it at scale, I need someone with lots of ovens, and no one can seem to make it because it's just different. And then let's see. But yes, we're working on more products. And how does one monitor own LDL levels without going to a medical doctor is another one up here. There are home kits that are available. You can actually get over-the-counter kits in Walgreens, CVS, and things like that. I will tell you that I have seen significant discrepancies between these over-the-counter and these home kits versus venipuncture kits. I mean, venipuncture draws, like, done at exactly the same time. Like, I've had people like, here, just take this kit, let's test it, let's see whether it will work. And the results were significantly off. So right now I don't recommend home kits. That maybe they'll they'll get better with time, but so that's all I see here.
All right, and I don't see anything either. So once again, thank you, Dr. Klodas,
Thanks,
And,
everybody. It was a pleasure.
and best of luck. And we look forward to seeing more.
And David, I'll see you in Orlando. Okay.
Good
All right.
night,
Bye,
everybody.
everyone.